Hello there guys and welcome back to the channel. So in today's video we're going to be talking about best champions to rank for variant content in particular, because I have obviously made best champions for Labyrinth, I have made best champions for Abyss of Legends and Act 6, top 15 most useful champions, so on and so forth. But however, if you are somebody who is currently in a progression level where you have decided to focus on all of the variant content and next, which I assume should be quite large demographic of Marvel Concept champions, because Act 6 is so horribly dog shit and variants are arguably the most enjoyable piece of content in the game, it will be beneficial for you to know exactly what kind of champions you are looking for in order to make variant content even more enjoyable, even more pleasant for you. And again, obviously these champions here differ. For instance, I overall hold Aegon in extremely high esteem. However, when it comes to variant content, Variant 1, he is a skill champion. That means he's needed only for Chapter 1, and that is by far the easiest one, therefore there is no need to focus on him. Variant 2 is made for extra large champions, therefore he doesn't really shine there, and none of his game mechanics kind of like support this heavy attack playstyle. And Variant 3 is for tech champions, so he doesn't shine there either. And Variant 4, well, in Variant 4 kind of pretty much everything goes based on which quest you're in, but still, even when it comes to dealing with first couple of bosses, Aegon doesn't really offer all that much to the table. So Aegon, for instance, is a champion that's fantastic pretty much everywhere else in the game, or at least in many different areas such as Act 6 and Abyss and Labyrinth. But he stinks in variants. Realistically, in variant kind of content, he's quite down there and mediocre at best. So let's jump to the next screen, and here we have again my four favorite different faces. So we're gonna start with the smiley face, and smiley face in this case represents Variant 4. And Variant 4 is the smiley face because it is universally kind of like known as the easiest variant. And realistically, anything goes in Variant 4, and Variant 4 isn't something that you need to focus on overly specifically for it, because they are only two realistic objectives for exploring Variant 4, and that is a way to beat Electro Boss. So you're gonna need champions who have like energy attacks, for instance, like Havoc can be really great for it, and there are multiple other answers which I'm not going to go in detail, but basically you only have to focus on beating Electro and Deadpool X-Force, but Deadpool X-Force can kind of be cheesed with many different champions, so again, it's not really the trickiest thing to do. Obviously the additional note which I should have probably put on for Variant 4 and I forgot is 1-star Hulk. You need to get that 1-star Hulk, because that's a major requirement, and that's pretty much the only kind of like blemish of a good record for Variant 4. It's the embarrassment of that piece of content, because other than that, Variant 4 would be like one of the best piece of content Marvel Concept champions had ever created, but they had to sneak in one last cash grab to get that 1-star Hulk requirement, and still not offer players even half a year down the line any realistic chance to get that 1-star Hulk outside of that really money hungry 50 unit hero crystal where you have 20% chance to get a random 1-star. So a big boo and shame to Kabam for messing up a beautiful piece of content like that, and even bigger boo and shame to Kabam for never giving players a realistic opportunity to get that 1-star Hulk to this day. But that being said, let's move on quickly to the Variant 3. Variant 3 obviously is tech variant, so any good strong hitting tech champion largely will be good for it. So Guillotine 2099, starting at Spider-Man, Warlock, Ghost and Sentinel are kind of like most mainstream characters that put in a lot of work. The entire variant has been like pretty much designed for Sentinel, and Sentinel gets a lot of benefits and a lot of extra damage, and he's truly kind of like at a level where even a maxed out 4-star Sentinel will put in incredible amount of work for you. Obviously there are other class champions that you can use, preferably with a really big damage output, because otherwise the fights will last incredibly long. But as a main kind of clearer for majority of the fights, you will always want to go with a tech champion, otherwise you're going to be facing 50% attack penalty, and that is extremely annoying. But that being said, pretty much any good kind of like tech character will do the job in Variant 3, and overall it's also relatively short. Variant 3 and 4 both are shorter than their counterparts, because Variants 1 and 2 had 3 quests per chapter. Variants 3 and 4 have only 2 quests per chapter, so objectively they are far quicker than the first 2 variants. But yeah, that being said, let's move on to variant 2, which is quite alright, which is not too bad. And variant 2 obviously focuses on extra large champions. However, at the same point, that node doesn't penalize any champion for using heavy attacks. Therefore, champions who have extremely potent abilities or high damage output on heavy attacks can also do fantastic in said variants. Now, variant 2 kind of like megastars would be Quake, for instance, as she was extremely helpful because obviously she doesn't get penalized by those nodes. But obviously we have Venom the Duck. Carl is one of the kind of like strong champions in variant 2, and that's like the only place where Carl Obsidian can really shine. Captain America, Infinity War, Archangel, Sentinel, Thing, Warlock, Domino. So largely it's always going to be extra large champions with kind of like potent abilities and just good extra large champions. By extra large champions, don't start bringing in your Juggernauts and Rhinos and stuff like that. You're going to be better off bringing in Captain America Infinity War because he largely plays with heavy attacks and he can be superbly useful for a lot of content in there. So variant 2 again focuses on extra large champions, or champions who can fulfill their game plan without landing kind of like basic hits. And yeah, and obviously the last variant is variant 1, and variant 1 is different than any other variant because it limits the champions you can bring in. And here kind of like the bigger kind of like criteria would be a champion class rather than the champions themselves. For instance, since Skill and Mutant is the first chapter of variant 1, which is by far the easiest, you definitely do not want to be kind of like specifically ranking up any Mutant or Skill champions for variant 1 because realistically you have quite a good chance of getting through chapter 1 without highest rarity and rank of champions. Now the champion classes you need to look out for specifically and kind of like find the best champions for will be Mystic, Tech, Science, and kind of Cosmic, but Cosmic in its all reality doesn't really work too well as well because Cosmic is chapter 3 where you can use Science and Cosmic champions, and pretty much everything in chapter 3 has some sort of penalties where you get buffs, and Cosmic champions notoriously get a lot of buffs compared to any other class. And then you have fisticuffs, then you have pilfers, and then you have all spites and so on and so forth, many different nodes that kind of like penalize you for having said buffs. So Science champions are realistically the stars of variant 1 chapter 3, and chapter 2 in variant 1 is more or less kind of pretty much all about power control, and again not having those buffs because I think spite and stuff like that is a thing there. So you will more than likely be largely relying on kind of like solid mystic power control characters. Good examples obviously would be Dr. Doom. Magic is an absolute MVP for variant 1 chapter 2. Black Widow Clairvoyant can be extremely useful for it as well. From tech champions, Warlock can put in some work here and there, but again, if there's spite, then it makes it really tricky to play with Warlock. And yeah, for chapter 3, Science champions that are absolute MVPs would be Captain America Infinity War, Quake once again, Thing is extremely good in variant 1 as well, and a whole bunch more. So when it comes to actually specifically ranking up champions for variant based content, your base goal obviously should be to have champion fit as many of these different criteria as possible. So that means you're looking, for instance, ideally in this case, if for an extra large Science champion, and that would be Thing, because Thing is fantastic for variant 2 and Thing is fantastic for variant 1. The most common kind of like notable gods of variant would be Sentinel, because obviously Sentinel has his own variant, and additionally to that, he's also extremely good for variant 2 because he's an extra large champion. So Sentinel and Warlock both are tech champions that are extra large and automatically kind of like fulfill 2 different requirements for variants 2 and 3. Variants 4, you don't need to kind of like focus on it too much, as I said, because pretty much anything goes. And again, Sentinel and Warlock still both can put in about solid amount of work in variant 1 as well. So for instance, those 2 kind of like come out as some of the best choices for variant content. Same as Quake does, because Quake does great in variant 1, Quake does great in variant 4 when it comes to dealing with Electro and Deadpool X-Force. Quake does great in variant 2 because she doesn't have to drop any basic attacks. So variant 3 is only one where Quake doesn't like come out on top, even though she can obviously still be used. It's just the fights will take so much longer. So Quake is fantastic option for a lot of it. Again, Ghost obviously, as always, Ghost is a tech champion, so she's great for variant 3. Ghost can put in a lot of work, especially if you can play without Wasp synergy in variant 1 with Hood synergy, and that will be super helpful. And also Ghost is one of the champions that can be used to beat Deadpool X-Force quite effectively for variant 4. So the whole base idea for this video is not to give you exactly this and that and that and that champion. It's just when you look at your roster, you need to figure out which champions kind of like fulfill as many different requirements and will work as many different sections of each variant as possible. But as I mentioned before, obviously majority of quote-unquote beyond god tier champions will still put in a good amount of work, like Quake and Ghost is obviously always a solid rank up, but specifically for variant content, I believe they are quite closely followed by Thing, by Sentinel, by Warlock, because they fit in so many different variants and do a lot of heavy lifting over there. Just like Captain America Infinity War, for instance, is great for variant 2, 1, and parts of variant 4, I guess. But yeah, so that is kind of like the base idea. These are more or less the champions that you should be looking at when you want to tackle your variant content. Obviously, I can't mention every single champion because for, I know, variant 2, there might be some other XLR champions that are quite useful, or for variant 1, for instance, there are some unsung heroes that I didn't mention as well. But the base idea is, outside of these kind of like top 5 options, it is up to you to look at your roster and to find as many common variants for a single champion as you possibly can, where you could utilize the champion extremely well, and then go with it, go for it, and rank them up and clear the variants, because the rewards are very good for the amount of work and investment that's required. And arguably, yes, variants are probably the most enjoyable piece of content in this game. So that will pretty much be it for today's video. Again, this video was made kind of like specifically after a request by a person in my live stream. So if you have any other video suggestions, please do reach out. I'll try my best to oblige. But that is it for today, and that means it's Baby Yoda time. Here we go, Baby Yoda drinking from his sippy cup, patiently waiting for you to hit that like button, hit that sub button, share to your friends, share to your alliance mates, and yeah, drop a comment. Leave me your thoughts, what other videos you would like to see on the channel, or perhaps something extremely important that I missed out in today's video. But either way, that will do for today, and I'm gonna catch you guys soon. See ya!